Magnus Carlsen died on the chessboard. It is his death anniversary. Turns out the last time Magnus lost to the Dutch number 1, Anish Giri, was 12 years ago. It's not often the world champion loses a game of chess. How's this video going to be useful for you? You're going to see why sacrifice a pawn straight out the opening while learning a new opening at the same time, called the Queen's Indian Defense. Next up, you're going to see a very surprising fact, as Magnus actually had this position, but on the opposite side. What's he doing? Is he making fun of Anish Giri? And then finally, you're going to see two bishops absolutely destroy Magnus and a great finish coming up. I mean, the world champion simply cannot move. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, with the white pieces, Dutch number 1, Anish Giri, and with black, Magnus Carlsen. Here we have it. This is part 1 of the intro, the Queen's Indian Defense, where black plans to get this bishop on the diagonal early. Which spot are you going to pick? Magnus picked bishop to a6 first to attack the pawn. One common way is to defend it with b3. Queen c2 chosen today. The next move looks so funny. It looks like a total beginner's move because it looks like Magnus has just changed his mind. He's gone back. The reason he's gone back is because of this high class reason. It's because the queen is no longer here. So black actually controls d5 3 times. Bishop g2. You don't want to play d5 in these kind of positions because now this bishop is blocked. This bishop might come in the game, something like this, castle, and then here. Already, this is an attacking piece, this is a defensive piece. It's very important which pawn Magnus pushes. Let's go back a few moves. Turns out he keeps the Queen's Indian bishop open. He plays c5. So then he's contesting on this diagonal. d5. This is part 1 of the intro. I know I mentioned, you guys have just learned the Queen's Indian Defense. You've also learned the fact that Anish Giri can sacrifice a pawn on move 7 against the world champion. d5, this move looks like a total blunder. What's Anish Giri doing? Green, blue, yellow. Bishop, pawn, knight are attacking it. It looks like he's just chucked a pawn. It looks like Anish Giri has just chucked a pawn. Castle. Bishop e7. Black's ready to castle. I mean, what's the point? How can you just chuck a pawn like this against Magnus? Turns out this is all preparation. This is all part of the plan. You can see from the blue arrow, the normal move here is castle, and that's the funny thing, guys. You castle, you lose. You might be thinking, what's William talking about? I just get my king safe, I keep playing. Queen e4 is a brilliant move. This is part of Anish Giri's high-level preparation. Queen e4 is a trap. You cannot move the knight or else you lose the Queen's Indian bishop. Oops. What if you attack the queen? Pin and win. That's a very nice. It's a very common phrase in many games. If you pin the guy, then they cannot move that piece. What if you break the pin? You don't. You maintain the pin. What if you break the pin? Now the queen has to move, so you might as well take. And we're still on both. It's too dangerous. Maybe the knight goes back. And this is an absolutely awful position for black because these pawns are too far advanced. You know this pawn, it would rather be back on f7. The king is too weak. So let's go back a few moves. Turns out something's gone wrong because if you can't play the obvious move in an opening, these are the kind of traps you want to set. Castle is the normal move here in any game because you want to get your king safe. Not today. It loses because of what I just showed you. The queen comes in the center. Magnus now plays a move which looks like he's just chucked a knight. You cannot take this because double attack. You are hitting both the rook and the queen. The queen has to move and then you pick up the rook. So knight c6 is a nice tactical shot. If you can't go to e4, you go to f5. You hit the knight from this angle. You guys might be thinking, what is William talking about? Why can't I do the same thing? This is the big difference. I attack the queen, and I can't just randomly play queen takes hop over the knight. That's why Magnus played this move. Do you remember a few moves ago that knight wasn't there, so I could take that bishop. That's the key difference in this line. So I think I've accidentally taught myself something as well by creating this Queen's Indian video. Let's go back a couple moves. Rook d1, Queen f5. We're hitting the knight. It drops back, and now if black can get d5, black has a great position because black's up a pawn, and you stop it. You can see I've reversed the arrows. Green, blue, yellow for black. Not anymore. It's green, blue, and yellow for white. We are controlling the d5 square. And you remember a few moves ago, this is the pawn Anish Giri chucked. But he didn't chuck it, he sacrificed it. White has a lot of space. d6. Controlling the square, so what? Anish Giri goes forward. We're going to blow open the center right here, right now. You can't play pawn takes or else you just lose your queen. Queen d7. Only move by Magnus to save the situation. The queen is under attack. There's no time for white to take the knight. So queen d7 is a really good move from Magnus. The queen's now come off. But after this transition, this pawn on d6 is just way too strong. The bishop moves. Black is one move away, just like before I was saying. You can castle. No, you can't. It is white's move. Check. The king now goes out the way. By the way, you cannot block because you just lose. Take, take, take. And just want to show you, even if this option wasn't possible, this is the key move. You're using the pin. So look out for these tactics in your own games where you're just pinning one piece against the king or a piece behind it and you win the piece. So you cannot block. Turns out Magnus has given up the chance to castle. Knight c3, knight b4. Is Magnus just finding a way to come back in the game? Is he making fun of Anish Giri? What is William talking about? Why did he mention this in the intro? Turns out Magnus has had this from the white side back in 2008 against Swiss #1 Yannick Pelletier. Bishop g5 was played in that game, and after knight c2, where Magnus just blundered a rook, right? Nope. Rook e7. Things get complicated really fast. Bishop comes off for knight, bishop just comes off, and then you take this one. Then pair of rooks come off, and then the rook comes in the center. And something like this where Magnus went on to win. But not today. Magnus now had it from the black side. So he's had this position before and he's willing to go into it against Anish Giri, who's one of the best players in the world. What is he doing? Here is the first moment. Pause the video now or let the timer run. Can you find a very nice move for white? A very nice counter shot. You have 9 seconds. And if you can't see it, don't worry. I'm going to show you guys the move pretty soon. The move is knight e5. Everything's hanging. First question must be, what if the bishops come off? They don't. You go check first. You check the guy first. You might take this dangerous bishop, then you take. And you guys might be thinking, what is he talking about? You still get fought. No, you get fought. What a move. That move wins the game. The guy can't move. If you check, it's mate. That rook can't get in the game. If you take this rook, do you play rook takes knight? That would make sense, right? Wrong. Mate. Knight e7 and knight f6. I'm not going to take the knight when I'm going to take the king next. There's no good way to stop either check. So I thought that was a great variation to show. I want to go back a few moves. It's a long variation, but please note all of these are captures and a lot of top players are able to see these moves because they are all forcing. So when you get really good at chess, you can also see all of these captures. They're all checks and they all make sense. Knight e5. So you can't take the bishop, as we just saw. Knight takes knight, check. So in the game, Magnus took. Bishop takes bishop. Your first thought might be, rook here, I'm going to attack the bishop. No, just a little bit of class from Magnus, rook d8. Do not attack a bishop which is controlling a couple of squares which are doing nothing. you might as well get the rook in the game, attack something worth attacking. Rook d8 attacks the pawn, you're going to defend it with rook d1. Knight c4, put the pressure. Magnus is finding a way back in the game. Couple of knights on the left, bishop is well placed. You've got to push, it's the only way. You cannot play this because this one drops. And also this drops because the bishop now attacks it. So Anish had to push the pawn, and now knight c2. Attack the rook. It goes to b1, and it's very important the knight stays here to stop b4, but he didn't do it. He put the knight in the center, and this is a bad move because now Anish Giri strikes on the left. On your left, b4. Opening up the queen side. The rook and bishop are now available, so he should not have allowed this opportunity. Rook takes d7, bad move, hit the bishop. One option was actually knight e5 because we're finding a way maybe to come in with f3 or defend in this way. Going to take this way next, but Magnus didn't actually play this. Rook d7. Here is your second chance, guys. Pause the video now. 9 seconds. White to move. It looks like black's got a great position because you play this capture, you're attacking the bishop, it has to move. And you're right. Bishop where? Bishop d5. You attack the knight. You cut off the fact that there's no chance for the rook to hit the other rook. So, bishop d5 is a great move. This knight has to move now, and Magnus is in big trouble. The pawn's come off. Well, so what? This rook check, so what? You're not going to play this check, by the way. Don't just check a guy, because the guy can just block and your attack is dying. This is not the correct way to trade. You want to trade when it benefits you. This trade does not benefit you. It benefits black. Black is finding a way out now. Don't do this. You get bishop a3. Bishops are now about to slice the board. This check, as you can see from the blue arrow, we can reserve it for later. If we go king e7, now we take. I was wondering, why not play this? That was my first thought. Now you can check. You cannot go king here because you lose the rook. But what if you block with the knight? Drop the bishop back. I think that's a cool move. Bishop here looks pretty good, and then the knight can hop in. Knight d5. Black can't move. This is pretty similar to the game where Anish Giri just totally controls the board. You might throw in this check, you might take, but please note that rook is going to come in. 2 bishops slice the board, which is what I mentioned in part 3 of the intro. So we're going to go back because it's pretty similar, the situation which happened. King e7. Magnus actually said, I'm not going to defend this pawn, I'm going to get my king back in the center. But now, I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the 2 bishops really do slice the board. Magnus is finding it so difficult to play a good move. Knight e6. Good move. Attack the bishop. Your first thought might be to move the bishop. It is. It's not actually the best move, even though you're defending this knight and still maintaining the pin. The better move is actually to defend this bishop with knight a4. It's such a hard move to see because you've got 2 incredible bishops in the middle against 2 clumsy looking knights. Knight a4 is pretty good as well. If you grab that super dangerous bishop, you're going to come in. And now rook d3. So many options, let me explain. The green arrow shows the rook can check. The rook can also go to a3 to win that pawn. The blue arrow shows you can check with the other rook. You can't go to b7 because the knight controls it. The red arrow shows the bishop can come to c6 because you can control so many light squares. And the yellow arrow, here we go. You might be thinking, so what if I control that square? You might run away, but you can't. This is actually a bad move, by the way. It looks good, but you chase the king to a good spot. And this bishop defends the rook. Here, that's a brilliant move. And the yellow arrow now comes into action. What if the king now runs? This rook defends the knight. Correct? Wrong. Knight d7, check. You cut off the attack. You cut off the defense. So if the king runs, you're going to take the knight. If you come this way, you get mated. That's a pretty cool checkmate, by the way. All of a sudden, you're just going to get mated right in the center. Green arrow shows the rook, and the knight controls the 2 blue squares. Total domination. That's checkmate. So if we go back a few moves, that's what could happen. But turns out, Anish just played the normal move, bishop e4. Magnus now chucked a pawn. No, he didn't. He didn't chuck a pawn. He just wanted to deflect this bishop. It's a blunder because even though you get the bishop off the diagonal, so there's no pressure, he is down a pawn. But he tried to break up the pressure. Rook c8. That's the point. You're attacking this knight, but guess what? Do you remember a couple moves ago, the knight actually went to this square anyway, and it's such a dangerous moment where you're going to fork both rooks. This is why black now play knight b6, so you can't play here, or else the capture happens. Pin. Pin and win. That's going to be a useful phrase. Remember that phrase when you're playing your own games. The knight can't move. Stop the guy moving, and you're going to win. Bishop e5. By the way, you can't take at the moment because you throw in this check, and then you can pick it up. Because it looks like in this moment, you are just down. You're just going to lose that knight. You are going to lose that knight. Bishop b4 check first. The king is now flushed out. You can't take at the moment. Same problem. Because I'm going to take. I'm going to trade rooks. Then I'm going to get the piece back. Just want to show you this absolutely brilliant tactic. Watch this. You need to move the bishop. You need to defend the bishop, I mean. Correct? Wrong. Knight b6. You hit the rook and you win the rook. What a gorgeous tactic. I had to show that because when I was flicking through this, I missed that option. Beautiful option. Let's go back a few moves. Here. Bishop b4 check. And now, knight c5. What a brilliant move. You want to win the knight, so you cut off the attack. The defense, I mean, from the rook on the knight. You also hit the rook, as you can see here. You take it, but then you still pin and win. Pin and win. Knight can't move. Magnus Carlsen can't move. He's about to go down. Rook c7, you defend. Bishop a5. And out of nothing, Magnus Carlsen resigned. And you guys might be thinking, nah, he shouldn't resign. Maybe he should play on a little bit, just to make it clear for me. Correct? That's what I'm going to do. You attack the rook. It has to move. You attack the knight. It cannot move, or else you lose the rook. So what if you defend? You attack the bishop. Every move is an attack. This game has gone spectacularly well for Anish Giri. What a day for him to beat the world champion. Bishop just retreats. Yellow arrow, we're attacking the bishop. Green, we're attacking the knight. Blue, we're going to defend. We have to defend. Rook e6, we defend. We attack. The bishop sneaks out the other way. I mean, it is really the case where the bishops slice the board from every angle. You're going to lose a rook. So let's say you move that rook out of the way. So what? Everything drops. You just take the rook. Or just take this one. And if you take with the king, so then you defend this guy. I mean, so what? This is hanging. And then Anish Giri is just up a rook. He is just up a rook. So in this moment, after bishop a5, Magnus had enough. No good moves. This was the final part of the intro, where I showed the fact that Magnus Carlsen can't move in his position. He's pinned down, and he resigned against Anish Giri, Dutch #1. Let me know in the comments. What do you think of the Dutch #1, Anish Giri?